man who spent 40 years making sure no client ever left a gap just found 5 of them. Not on a client's file. On his own. Let me tell you about Ed Langford. It's late. Somewhere past 11. One desk lamp burning in a back bedroom office in Spokane, Washington, and the rest of the house dark and quiet. The good kind of quiet. The kind he spent a whole career helping other families pay for. And Ed is sitting there in front of a cold computer screen. And he is not moving. On that screen is his own Social Security earnings record. 40 years in the business, and not every one of them paid in. Right there in the middle of his record. 5 years sit empty. 5 little zeros, lined up like missing teeth. He has read 10,000 of these statements across other people's kitchen tables. He just never once pulled his own, and that worn tan briefcase. The one he's carried into every front room and every diner booth for the better part of 40 years, it's sitting there on his knees. He doesn't even remember picking it up off the floor. His thumb is resting on the cold brass clasp, and he just keeps looking at those 5 zeros. And finally, he says it out loud, to nobody at all.
I sold peace of mind for a living, and I never once opened my own file.
He's 62 years old. He could walk into a Social Security office tomorrow morning and file. He knows the paperwork cold. He could fill it out in his sleep. And that is exactly what's eating him alive. The man whose whole name in this town means the fella who has a plan for everything is the one sitting in the dark, caught without one. Now here is what I need you to hold on to, because it's the reason I'm telling you Ed's story tonight, and not somebody else's. Ed thinks those 5 zeros are permanent. He thinks the damage is locked in. He is wrong. He cannot erase those 5 years. Nobody can. But he can make them stop counting against him. A gap left in the past can still be closed by the future. And before we're done, you are going to know exactly how he does it. But that is not where his head is, at 11 o'clock at night. For nearly 40 years, Ed sold insurance, independent agent, his own little shop, no big corporate name on the glass, and he was good at it. Not slick good, trustworthy good. He had one line he gave every single client, so many times it stopped. Being a sales pitch, and just became who the man was. Never leave a gap. Term life, disability, the spousal coverage folks try to skip to save themselves $30 a month. Never leave a gap. He'd find the hole in your plan you couldn't even see, and he'd close it before it ever got the chance to hurt the people you love. There's an old name for a man like that. The cobbler whose own children go barefoot, fixes every pair of shoes in town except the ones on his own kids' feet. And maybe you know that feeling from the inside. Maybe you're the one in your family who always has the answer, the one everybody calls when the bill doesn't add up, the one who reads the fine print so nobody else has to squint at it. Hold on to that, because Ed was that person for a whole city, right up until tonight.
Eddie, you always told them, never leave yourself a gap.
She said it soft, from the doorway, not even looking up from the hallway light switch. She wasn't needling him. She had no idea what was glowing on that screen. Carol's been proud of that man for 40 years. She still introduces him at church as the one with the financial head. She meant it as the kindest thing in the world. But you know how a kind word can land like a verdict when you're already on the floor. His own tagline, handed right back to him. On the very night he found out he'd done the one thing he spent his whole life warning everybody else against. He didn't answer her. He just nodded into the dark and waited for the hallway light to click off. So let me hand you the one thing Ed didn't have at 11 o'clock that night, because it would have saved the man a week of staring at the ceiling. Social Security builds your benefit out of your highest 35 years of earnings. 35. And here's the catch nobody puts on a poster. If you've got fewer than 35 years with real money on them, the empty slots don't just politely sit there. They get filled in with zeros, and those zeros get averaged straight into your check, for good. If you have never once pulled your own statement and counted how many real earning years you've actually got, that right there is the whole ballgame. Now maybe you're sitting there thinking, 40 years in, that's not me. And maybe you're right, and thank God for it. But if you ever stepped out to raise the kids, took a few years to care for your own mother or father, ran your own little shop through some lean seasons, started over fresh in this country, or worked a stretch where the taxes never came out of your check, then you might have a zero or two hiding in your own 35, and you'd never know it until you looked. That was the door Ed was scared to open, and the next morning, parked in a stranger's driveway, he finally opened it.
Morning. I'm parked in a client's driveway, engine still ticking as it cools off. This nice couple inside waiting on me to come in and sell them their retirement plan. And I cannot make my hand open the car door. So I reach over and grab a blank policy form, one of mine, the kind I fill out for other people. And I turn it over to the back and I start running my own numbers against the steering wheel. They take your best 35 years, so I count mine up, the real ones. The years with actual earnings on them, and I get to about 30. 30 good years, which means 5 of the slots they're going to average in are just air. 5 zeros sitting there pulling the whole number down. And I do the arithmetic. The same arithmetic I've done at 1,000 kitchen tables for every soul but myself. And when I get to the bottom of that policy form, and I see what those 5 blanks are costing me.
There it was, in his own handwriting, a little over $100 a month, more than $1,300 a year, every year for the rest of his life. And then for Carol's life after his, because a bigger check for Ed means a bigger survivor check for her. 5 zeros, $1,300 a year, walking quietly out a door he forgot to close. And maybe that's the chair you're sitting in right now. Maybe you're not Ed at all. Maybe you're Carol, the husband or the wife who never ran the numbers, the one who's going to have to live on whatever check the other one leaves behind. That number on the back of the policy form, it was hers too. She just didn't know it yet. Ed let the clasp snap shut. And for the first time in 40 years, that little metal click didn't mean on to the next appointment. It meant something had been decided. Now here's the part I still can't quite get over. This was not a new problem to Ed Langford. Years back he had a client, a school custodian. Good man. Took a few years off the books to help raise his grandbabies. And Ed caught the thin spot on that fella's record and walked him through patching it. Saved him real money. Ed still remembered him shaking his hand in the parking lot, calling him a lifesaver. The one thing Ed did for a stranger was the one thing he never once did for himself. And the only road forward now ran straight through the one place he dreaded, the Social Security field office, the place he'd sent 100 other people, the place where Ed Langford was supposed to be the expert. He was going to have to take a paper number, sit down in those hard plastic chairs, and ask somebody else for help. So, let me ask you something before we walk through that door with him. Have you ever been the steady one? The one who always had the answer for everybody else? And then gone quiet one night and realized there was nobody standing behind you. What the woman behind that counter told Ed Langford, he never saw coming. And it's the same thing almost nobody tells the people in those chairs. He almost didn't go. He sat in the parking lot of that Social Security field office for a good 10 minutes, engine off, watching folks shuffle in and out through the glass doors. This was his country. He'd sent 100 clients through those very doors, with their folders all tabbed and ready. And now, here he was, walking up to the little machine, pulling a paper number out of it like everybody else, and lowering himself into one of those hard plastic chairs to wait for his name. When they finally called him, he set that worn briefcase up on the counter, thumbed the brass clasp open, and slid his own earnings statement across to a stranger, the expert, asking for directions on the road he used to give. And somewhere in that quiet, the thing that had been simmering in him for a week finally came up.
I want to ask you something straight. 40 years I sat across the table from people and told them to mind the gaps. 40 years. And not one soul, not one, ever once told me to go count my own 35. So tell me plain, is it too late? Did I already lock this in?
And here's where the whole story turned. Because the answer, the one Ed had been too scared to go find, was no. It was not too late. Not even close. She walked him through it, and I'm going to walk you through it too, because this is the part that's worth the whole hour. Ed had not filed yet. He was 62, eligible, but he hadn't signed a thing. Now, a lot of folks half remember some rule about how working can cost you your Social Security. Draw a check, keep earning, and they claw part of it back. That rule's real, and it's got a name, the earnings test. But here's what Ed had forgotten in all his worry. It only kicks in once you've actually started taking a check, and as long as you have not filed for your benefit, there is no earnings test on you at all. You can go work as much as you want, and not $1 of it gets held back, because there's no check yet for them to reduce. That fear that working would somehow cost him, gone. It never applied. Second thing she told him, and this is the one that put the color back in his face. Those 5 zeros weren't a life sentence. Every new year, he goes out and earns what they call covered money, just regular work where Social Security tax comes out of the check, the same tax that's been coming out your whole life. That year drops into his highest 35 and shoves one of those zeros right out the bottom. And he doesn't have to file a form, or ask permission, or come back and beg. Social Security recalculates it automatically, every single year. The bump just shows up. The letter just comes. The man had spent a week reading his own record like a verdict, and it turned out to be a to-do list. Now Carol had no idea any of this was happening yet. For 40 years, she'd told the people at church her husband was the one with the financial head, the man who never missed a thing. That pride had become the heaviest thing in their house that week, because Ed was carrying it around like a man who'd been caught lying. And maybe you've got someone like that in your life. Or maybe you are the one everybody assumes has it all handled. While you lie awake doing the math nobody knows you're doing. If that's you, stay with me, because the back half of this is for you.
You'll fix it. You always know what to do.
She meant it as comfort. He took it like a sentence handed down, because for the first time in 40 years, Ed wasn't sure he did know what to do. He only knew what he should have done. That gap between the two is where a proud man goes quiet. But he wasn't quiet for long, because now he had a plan, and Ed Langford was nothing if not a man with a plan. It's dusk, a few evenings later, in the back room of his own little agency. The kind of room where the sample binders live, where the heat clicks off after 5. He's shutting the place down, killing the lights, one bank at a time. And he sets that briefcase up on the shelf where it's always lived, the leather gone dark where his hand has gripped it for 40 years. And he rests his palm flat on the top of it for a second. Not like it's a verdict anymore. Like it's a tool that still has work left in it. And he says the truest thing he's said all week.
I can't get those 5 years back. I spent a long time being ashamed of him, but I don't have to keep paying for him either. I keep working, 3-4 days a week now, the renewal desk plus my cut on every policy that renews. Work I could do half asleep, and one at a time, those zeros fall off. 5 years of that, and the last one drops the same year I turn 67, full retirement age, right on the nose. The plan and the calendar end on the same day. Funny. 40 years closing other people's gaps. Turns out I had just enough time left to close one of my own.
And that's the man. Not fixed, corrected. Same steady voice he'd used on 1,000 nervous clients, finally pointed at himself. Now, before you let this settle into nice story about some insurance fella in Spokane and drift off, the next 90 seconds are the part that's actually yours. Let me put it where you can use it. This story shows how realizing the zeros weren't permanent, that every extra year of covered work replaces one and quietly lifts the check for life, helped Ed Langford stop reading his record as a verdict and start treating it as the one gap he could still close. Here's the short of it. A man who fixed everyone's blind spot but his own, found 5 empty years on his record at a cold screen, did the brutal math on the back of a policy form in a client's driveway, carried his own statement up to a counter he'd sent others to, and finally set his bag down, knowing the fix was already in motion. 4 moments, one worn briefcase. A whole different ending than the one he'd written for himself at 11 o'clock that first night. So here's what I want you to actually take to your own kitchen table. The thing Ed learned at that cold screen. Your benefit is built on your highest 35 years. And if you've got fewer than 35 with real earnings, the blanks come in as zeros that drag the whole check down. The thing he learned in the driveway, those zeros have a price you can put a number on. The thing he learned at the counter, if you haven't filed yet, working can't cost you a dime. And every covered year, you knocks a zero out automatically. And the thing he learned with his hand on that bag, a gap from your past can still be closed by your future. But only if you go look. Now the steps, plain ones. First, tonight, the same way Ed finally faced that screen. Go pull your own Social Security statement at ssa.gov and count your real earning years. Not your career, your years with actual money on them. If it's under 35, you've got zeros in your number right now. Second, every time you'd normally just glance at a pay stub, do what Ed did against that steering wheel and run the one calculation that matters. Each additional year of about $30,000 in covered work adds roughly $23 a month to your benefit per zero it replaces. Replace 5 of them, and that's about $114 more a month. More than $1,300 a year for the rest of your life, and a bigger survivor check for the person you leave behind. Third, if you have not filed yet and you're still working, do not let anybody scare you out of those hours. There is no earnings test on income when there's no benefit being paid, so every dollar you earn is just quietly fixing your record. Fourth, don't go filing any extra paperwork to claim the bump, the way Ed almost did out of habit. Social Security recomputes your benefit automatically each year the new earnings post. Your only job is to keep the covered work honest and let the formula do the rest. Fifth, if you're 62 and staring down the decision to claim early, sit with Ed's calendar before you sign every year. You keep working before you file can both replace a zero and grow the check right up to your full retirement age. Know your own number first. And sixth, whatever you find tonight, say it out loud to the person across the table from you, the way Ed finally had to with Carol. The gap you hide is the one that hurts the people you love. The gap you say out loud is the one you can start closing tomorrow. If you're somewhere between 40 and 70 and this story hit close to home, drop "I'm in" the comments. I read them, and I try to answer as many as I can. This is the story of one ordinary person who figured out their situation. This is not personal advice and not a guarantee. Social Security rules are complex and depend on your age, earnings record, credits, health, family situation, and possible changes in law. What worked flexibility here will not work for everyone. Always consult a qualified Social Security professional or your local office before making any decisions. Don't risk your family's future relying solely on someone else's experience.